back. You better believe it. So listen, again, we want to thank Open Tax Advocates for sponsoring this wonderful little podcast here today. Remember, 312-664-6649 or visit chicagotaxteam.com. It's going to be your hub to fight the IRS. Man, I miss speaking it. Man, I miss saying it. And boy, I miss this guy. We're going to go right over to Attorney Stephen A. Leahy.
Well, welcome. Thanks, Jim. And we all miss you, Jim. So
yeah, I mean, you're
a hardwired man. You don't want the camera on you? I wanted a camera on
I don't have a camera on me. I don't want the camera on me.
I got the extra camera.
Don't worry about it. I'm good.
Well, first I want to thank Keith Brin for being here today. Thanks, Keith.
Thanks for having me.
Last time I saw Keith, we did a live review or comment on Harris's speech at the convention,
and more,
lots
of the speeches.
We had fun that day.
Oh yeah, we did.
Yeah, we had our friend Dick Barr with us, and we had now after that the debates, we wanted to do another one, but I had to go with 5:60 a.m. The Answer. I always sponsor those events. Had great time.
Wait, let's do that again. AM 560.
The Answer.
Boy, I missed that.
I know, I do too. But I had a lot of fun, and I could say, I was always kind of nervous. First, tell us who you are, so we know, so we could tell the crowd who you are and what you're doing, and then we're going to talk about, because the name of this podcast tells it all. So go ahead.
True enough. So Keith Brin, I'm the chairman of the Lake County Republican Party, among the hats that I wear. So I think that's probably the most pertinent for our conversation.
It is. And, before we talk about what's happened, talk about your own experience, because you have experience here as an elected official in Lake County, and so you have this deep knowledge of the evolution, or some would say de-evolution, and then rising from.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so for those who don't know, Lake County used to be bright red. I know it's very hard to believe, but pretty much all of the collar counties up here, outside of Cook, used to be bright red. And then, and I was elected in 2012.
So not too long ago.
Not a little over. Wow. Almost 13 years ago. Oh my goodness.
As my kids would say, your couple of years or my couple of years.
Oh my goodness. That's a long time. I won't think about that again. So I was the clerk of the circuit court, which meant I was in charge of the administration and management of the hub of the court system. Lake County is the third biggest county in Illinois, a very, very big court system. So I was the administrative hub of that entire court system. 2016, I ran again for re-election. Trump was on the ballot for the first time. It was a very rough primary, as I recall. There were 10 people or so running for president.
I remember, yeah.
Trump came sort of out of nowhere, formerly a Democrat, came out there swinging and won. And the whole political landscape, I think, certainly in the suburbs and northern Illinois, changed.
Has never been the same?
No, and in that election, all of the Republicans just started falling. There was something about Trump running in that particular election that didn't mesh well with suburbs. So suburbs that were purple began getting blue. Now in fairness, places that were bright red got redder.
Yeah.
But everywhere else, especially the suburbs like around us in Lake County, started going blue, and within 2 election cycles, we had lost every countywide office in Lake County, and we went from a supermajority on the county board to a superminority on the county board, and that's where we remain.
That's kind of a shift, huh? I mean,
it was a major shift. A major shift not only in the results of elections, but in terms of a party that it was a sudden shift. Now, the Democrats couldn't buy an office in Lake County for years and years, and I give a lot of credit to my counterparts on the other side. They were in it for years before they saw results, and they fought, but they had a good network. They were prepared. They were ready to actually win. Republicans had always won, no matter what we did, and we had infighting. There were problems all over the board, but we won. We were not prepared to lose, so we had none of the infrastructure after we had lost to come back. It was sort of like the person who walked around all confident, till they got punched in the mouth, and then they weren't quite sure how to take it.
That's my favorite Mike Tyson.
It is. So
everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth.
That's right. And so and it couldn't be more apropos to the Republican Party in Lake County. And so we are now coming back from getting punched in the mouth, but we join some good company. So all of the collar counties, for example, this time around, all of the collar counties outside of Cook County except McHenry, Trump lost.
Yeah. Did better though.
Did better. And in McHenry, he actually won by a couple of points.
I wanted to. That's why I wanted to talk about this because there's a change in who is a Republican. It seems on the national ticket at least. Mm-hmm. I saw a meme the other day showed Trump, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK, Elon Musk, and said the Democrats won.
If you had told me that would be the coalition that would win 8 years ago,
yeah, there's a joke going around where it's like if you were to wake up from a coma and be like, RFK Jr. is trying to tell Donald Trump to bring back beef tallow for McDonald's. Like, what?
I mean, I would have thought you were huffing paint. I really, that 4 years ago. Keep in mind, Tulsi Gabbard ran as a Democrat on the ticket. RFK this cycle ran as a Democrat until he wasn't getting anywhere. It's Elon Musk was a Democrat until this cycle and evolved during this cycle. Joe Rogan and others came along, and it's really remarkable.
I think this is an important evolution, of the party and where it's going. Because again, just for like that, those that were always what they call neocons.
More the hawkish conservatives, I suppose.
Liz Cheney.
Yep.
That group. You go down to Bill Kristol, and this whole line of Republicans who are striving to save the Republican Party. It reminds me of in Vietnam, right? We need to burn the village down to save it.
Yeah.
And
stop! Don't talk about Nam.
And that's kind of what's going on, right? Mm-hmm. And then for them, it's like Trump's evil. I'm thinking of my friend Joe Walsh, and I keep watching.
Oh, poor Joe.
I know. I keep watching because Joe Walsh was a Lake County Republican,
a Tea Party born out of nothing Tea Party Republican who beat Melissa Bean for Congress,
and then moved to Lake County, and his wife took over that seat. Right. Almost lost by just a number of small number of people won on the election day, and it was only weeks later in 2020 when everything took weeks to count. And now again it's like it doesn't matter what happens to the party. It's Trump's evil, and we got to get rid of him. The party be damned. We've always said, we being, the party, and I never really considered myself part of the party, but I am a precinct committeeman, so I guess I'm part of the party.
You're part of the party. You are it. You're in the pool, my friend.
We can talk about why that is, but this is just what I'm talking about, right? That's kind of what I'm saying. Is like we always had said we need a larger tent.
Yes, we do.
Well, now the tent gets large. We don't agree with everything that they do. So do we kick them out of the tent, or do we embrace them?
So this has been the Republican Party's problem for decades. And as I referenced before, when we used to win and people would vote Republican, you had different factions of the Republican Party who would make these arguments, who would say, you're not conservative enough. You're way too conservative. You're nuts. You're barely Republican. And before we even knew the word rhino, people would make those arguments, but we would win. We had a sufficient mass of voters to vote Republican no matter what happened. And to be quite honest, most of the fighting was done internally. Most of the voters had no idea the party was fighting for itself.
The way it was.
Right, it had and they didn't care. And really, we're there to get candidates elected. So what does it matter as long as we get candidates elected? Now it actually really does matter because our numbers have gone down. My philosophy is a little bit different than some of my predecessors. I don't much care what people's issues are. If they want to come to the table, sit down, I don't care if they're Democrats. If they want to vote for the Republican candidates, pull up a chair.
Well,
I don't care, because that's the end of the day. Our job is to get people elected. And you know what? Look, start them out slow. If we could get them to vote for, and Trump did this in different areas, if we can get them to vote for Trump, and then next time around we have them vote for someone for Congress too. Before you know it, they've got 3 or 4 signs. I know quite a few Democrats who became Republicans based on Trump's manner of populism. I'm not even quite sure what to call it, but his brand of populism brought them over from being disenfranchised Democrats.
You know, I think
Let's do that.
Yeah, I think the most important thing really to take away from this too, and we spoke a little bit about this before the show started, is there's an opportunity to sort of rebuild the Republican Party around, again, the basis of, hey, this is for everybody and anybody, but here are the principles, right?
Well,
here's
that's why I wanted.
Here's the Bill of Rights.
That's why I wanted to sit down.
This is what we agree on.
This is why I wanted to sit down with Keith
on
today and talk about, because this is really where the rubber meets the road. I mean, how can we take advantage of what just happened? And people can say, well, look, you guys still lost. I mean, what's there to take advantage of? But there's a national mood,
right?
And that mood, while not totally engulfed Illinois because of the problems of our electric and the way it's all set up and all of that, that's set up by Democrats for generations, and we have to battle against that. But there's other states who've gone through that. Florida.
You know, people gravitate towards, especially in this digital day and age, where people gravitate towards authenticity. And I think that, if you start capturing that and becoming the true authentic, you have authentic candidates that really do stand for, again, the principles we just spoke on, you're going to go far.
You got to do more than stand on it. You got to
live it.
You got to live it, and I agree with that. And I think that's. I was listening to Elon Musk talk.
His cousin's Eon.
It's one of his son, Elon.
I mean, there's some creativity there.
There is. But I heard him.
There's a fine line between
Tucker, and there's another one, Tucker Carlson. There's another one that you could put on the list. There's a very good video going around of Peterson talking about all of the Avengers, as he calls them, the Trump Avengers, and how they all came together. Mm-hmm. If you think about it, isn't it amazing? He couldn't have done it without them, right? He wouldn't have won. He wouldn't have won the presidency, let alone the popular vote, without those Democrats in the mix.
I agree. I'm not sure any president really can.
Obama.
Yeah, but Trump, but Obama, I will always argue, didn't win because of his policies. He ran because it became fashionable to vote for a very charismatic, young, first African American president, and he drove the young people came to the polls, and he developed coalitions that Hillary tried to mirror and failed. Biden really didn't get, but people voted against Trump. And Kamala never got those coalitions back either.
They did try to emulate that Obama, the first black woman of color, that whole thing. They tried to get that.
She was a terrible candidate.
There's
the difference. People could stomach, as much as they may not have agreed with him, people could stomach and listen to Obama and give speeches and be somewhat inspired. Kamala was a train wreck.
I agree with that.
She was just awful.
She kind of did the combination between Biden and Obama, right? The Biden stay home, stay in the basement, don't say too much.
Right.
Let the media carry you over the threshold. And the Obama, I'm unique, I'm new, I'm change, I'm hope, I'm all of this. So there was a combination. Kind of doesn't work because Obama needed to be out, in front of people.
Right.
And, but they tried to do the hybrid. I can see how that, I guess with your candidate, you didn't really have much of a choice.
No. So now the Democrats are blaming each other.
Well, that's always happens.
I know, but really, whether it's, you name it, I mean, there's just some amazing stuff. But I actually think that the election cycle was too long for Kamala. if it was shorter, because at first, if you recall,
She had a 3-month election cycle.
well, no, I mean, it needed to be even shorter than that. If you recall, in the first month and a half,
I agree. I know.
She did go up. She was on a victory tour.
Yeah.
She was Miss America, waving around.
Yeah.
If that had been where she peaked,
Yeah.
but instead, at some point, people said, all right, we've done the victory tour. Now we actually want to hear what you stand
tell
for.
me what you want.
It was just long enough that she actually had to start speaking those things. People looked at her and said, my gosh, you are
an empty
you were an empty suit and you cackle
You
a
are
lot. And
legitimately
This
not.
guy reminds me of
This is awful.
Clint Eastwood, right, with the empty chair. It's like,
Yeah.
This is you.
Yes.
You're an empty chair.
so it was just long enough. Just long enough.
I agree with that. I agree with that. But again, I think what I'd like to talk about though is, again, how do we embrace, how do we corral that here in Lake County?
So this is going to be interesting because now we were victims of externalities. When Trump ran in 2016, the impact of his election really affected Lake County along with the other collar counties. Really affected us, just the impact of that externality. But now I think because we had a real comparison to an intervening president, that now people remember, okay, I may not have liked the way he handled personal communications. I may not like the fact that he has a phone with him at all times and can tweet out like he's a small child reacting to things. You know what though? I put food on my plate. My paychecks went farther. It was low unemployment. Goods were inexpensive. We were safe. No new foreign wars. You know what? I might disagree with him on a personal level, but life didn't suck, and they had that comparison.
Here's something else though I'd
Yeah.
like to take consider. Right? He also proved that lots of what he was saying was true. Right?
Absolutely, he did.
The Democrats, again, all the evils that they did to that man, and they did, and I don't think you can deny that. And it came to say, to kind of reinforce what he was saying when he said to them, when he came out and said, they were spying on my campaign. You're nuts. You're just a crazy man.
That's right.
You're
That's
paranoid. And then it comes out.
they were.
They were. But you're a Russian hack. But I'm not. They're making that up. Oh yeah, sure. They'd make that up.
And then that's what a Russian would say.
And that's what.
It's very interesting how someone is a conspiracy theorist until the conspiracies are proven correct.
But this is, I think, is what's happening in America. Is that we're all kind of waking up and again, this kind of opposite, kind of different what I thought would happen. I really thought the internet was going to free us all, right? And then it didn't. Right, it kind of bound us all. 2020 is a great example, right? Try to find a news story of something that they didn't want you to see. You couldn't find it,
Right.
You still can't really find it, but and so that I think that's a big backlash that come out like, hey, wait a minute, we are being controlled. They are controlling us.
We are. And I think there was a critical mass of lots of things. Not only was there the appearance of getting controlled, certainly at Trump, and it was, you saw the power of the government. But then people began to internalize it and think, you know what? If they could do that to someone like Trump, they could do it to us. And you know those stories of the IRS cracking down on certain people?
Oh, does he ever?
Yeah. And so,
Yes.
that could happen. And then on top of it,
Maybe
it
it
wasn't
has happened.
this is in good times,
Yes.
but it's garbage times, and the government seems to be doing this.
Yes.
Okay.
Very
We
good
need a
point.
change. We need something else. And by the way, that something else is something we saw 4 years ago, and we were pretty good with that. But now, of course, there's a reason that presidents often fail at midterms, because
Yes.
the wave they come in on is, the expectations are so
I agree.
high
I agree.
that inevitably they can't live up to them,
I agree.
which is another externality that's going to impact Lake County.
agree.
Look,
Yeah.
if you recall DeSantis when he ran for re-election, he crushed, I think it was Christ,
Yeah.
crushed him.
Former Republican.
Right. 4 years earlier, I think it was against Gillum, barely won. What happened? DeSantis is largely the same guy, but he had success.
Yeah.
Nothing is a better example
Agreed.
for why someone should be there than success. If Trump's economic policies work, if inflation starts coming down, if our borders start getting secure, if the foreign wars start clearing up quickly, we could have another Reagan-esque revolution coming off of Carter. And there's nothing better for the midterms than something like that. And that is an externality that then will fall on us. when suddenly it's okay to be a Republican in Lake County. It's not just big bad Trump mean man saying. Now it's we're doing
those that
pretty good.
supported him were
We're doing
afraid to
pretty good.
even say so. So
Right.
if he can embolden that group of people who supported him all along to just come out and say, "This is why I support it." Maybe you
right.
should too, right? Maybe and maybe it's time that we don't run away from him anymore. Again, I think it has to do with 100% what you're saying. Success.
Results will matter, and especially with the midterms. Look, if he does what he would like to do and has success with it, we are going to have an evolution in the role of government to the individual and the way we sort of look at our body politic, and it's going to trickle down to Lake County and all of the collar counties. This last election cycle, DuPage slipped even further. They lost more county board seats. They lost a 3-term incumbent countywide.
Yeah.
They slipped even further.
So how does that happen?
I think Lake County was a leading indicator to DuPage. DuPage was more Republican than Lake County was, and so as we slipped, they were behind us slipping. Now in McHenry, where you have a little bit more of a homogeneous, concentrated population, they did better.
It's rural. They don't have.
Well, but you know what though? Credit to them. They didn't let the Democrats. The Democrats really tried. They ran a whole bunch of candidates. They took county board seats back. Now they have 15 of 18. They flipped 2, I believe. 15 of 18 county board seats. Chair Bueller was reelected.
When you say they, you mean the Republicans.
The Republicans, yeah. So the Republicans did very well in McHenry. They got success. The other collar counties, we slipped. Now, Will County, last I saw, Trump only lost, I think, by a point or 2 in Will, which is really great. And a lot of credit goes to the former chair and the current chair, Christina. Dynamos, she comes from the grassroots side, very, very activist, and it does everything. She is wonderful, and her predecessor was great too. They have very different styles, but they're moving Will County forward, and they actually took back a countywide office, the clerk, which is which was great,
near and dear to your heart.
which is right, which is, but look, it's the state's attorney and the clerk are critical on elections, not because you win when you have the state's attorney or the clerk, but because you have a way to make sure that elections were run fairly, and you had a good opportunity, and they're transparent, and people who mess with elections get prosecuted. That's
a
important.
conspiracy theorist.
That's important. You know what? Look, the worst thing that happens with elections is that around the country, Maricopa County, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, they're worse than Cook County in counting ballots. How? I don't know, but they are for multiple cycles. Cook County gets in way ahead of them. And then it takes them days. And of course, you see people wheeling in boxes of ballots.
And I'm sorry, didn't it take them several months, even the last election cycle? They were still counting.
Well, they're still counting now.
Yeah, they are. They're still counting.
I understand that there's 2 million votes out there still.
Yeah. Well,
What are you
and
doing?
that Senate race in Pennsylvania still. I mean,
No, that's been called though. Casey has
Conceded?
Conceded, yes.
So it was, but when you see them wheeling in boxes
I
of
know,
ballots
I know.
days after, you know what? That will always engender conspiracy theories.
I agree with that.
So where did a box of ballots come from?
On election day, they said, "Here comes these trucks." I was thinking about this yesterday because I was thinking, I'm an old guy, so I've sat through so many of these, right? Election night. I remember when Gore, my brother and I were watching that election, and they did call it for Bush, but then
The hanging chads.
They're
holding him up to the light.
But we made those decisions
Right.
that night, right? And then in 2020, when they stopped counting the vote, as you were talking about, whether there was conspiracy or not, that gives rise to that
Exactly right.
suspicion.
Right.
Like, wait a minute,
Properly so.
This never happened before, and he's winning when you stop, and then he's losing when you find where did that happen? That's where the conspiracy comes from. Whenever CNN or these
where
other
did that
outfits,
happen? Why did that happen?
We
What
never know.
district did that come
Over
from?
and over again.
Where
Right.
did these get pulled from?
In all the big
Why are
ones,
these? Is this mail-in ballot?
And when CNN and all them say they're unsubstantiated, yeah, okay, unsubstantiated, but not unreasonable.
Right.
The suspicions were not
Look,
unreasonable.
my biggest question is, why can't they get it done? They know what the volume is going to be. It's imminently predictable.
I agree.
Why can't they figure out how to, if Cook County can do it, Maricopa County can do it, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania can do it. Cook County's bigger than them, and they get it done on election night.
I understand.
There are a few stragglers, fine, not millions of ballots. They can get it done. Why can't they?
It's just so funny because we can easily streamline this process. Everybody has a phone. Majority of people have a smartphone. You can even create a computer program or a website.
Well,
Everything is on the blockchain. You make your vote.
Well, the biggest.
You
I
vote.
agree with the blockchain,
You're done.
and there might
And
be
it
some
makes
technology.
everything
Although the technology guru, Elon Musk, is for paper ballots. I know, and so that kind of.
I am too, though.
That kind of. I am too, but that kind of alerts you. It kind of says maybe there isn't a secure way to do it.
So
Maybe.
anecdotally, this time around, right after the election, we had a whole bunch of poll watchers who camped out. Big credit to Willard Helander and her group on
Yes.
election integrity.
Yes.
Give him a clap on 3. 1, 2, 3.
No, we don't do it.
Yes.
I clap.
Yeah.
Come on.
You guys asked me to
He's
do
the
that.
coolest guy. You won't will it.
Willard was remarkable with her election integrity.
I
and
have
they
to
were
agree
great.
with
They
you.
literally camped out at the clerk's office. Polite, professional. Everything was above board, and the elections were fine. When the elections were over, a lot of those folks had to go back to like real jobs and stuff.
Didn't she hold the job that you held?
No, she was actually the clerk. I was
the
the
clerk.
circuit clerk.
Okay,
So
got
she
it,
was
got
the
it,
clerk.
got it. I knew she
So
was
I
the
went
clerk.
in after the election, and on that first day after, and did some poll watching. And I was commenting to some people as they were going through validating signatures. And I would challenge a few here and challenge a few there, and the three judges would get together and say, "Oh, we see a loop at the top of the L, and there's a flourish at the bottom of the K, and we think that's an O, but it might be an A, but we think it is." And I said to them, how is it that we are literally, none of you are handwriting experts. How is that literally that we are looking at signatures? It's got to be the worst way to validate something as important as a vote.
agree with
And I
that.
said, I'll admit right away, my signature. When I registered to vote when I was 18, I'm 52. My signature looks nothing.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing
Oh, yeah.
like
I could tell
so
you,
when-
mine doesn't look. I just redid my license from
Nothing like it.
It's similar, but not the same.
So what I do is, when I go in to vote,
You want to show me your ID?
no, here's what happens. When I go in to vote, I imagine what my signature would be like when I remember writing it down. So it's really a very neat version of my signature, which was my signature at one point. Very different than the scribble that it is now. If I put the scribble now, they would say, that's not you. So there has to be a better way.
Oh, I guess
So
that
it's
depends
funny.
on who's-
In 2020, I went and voted because it was in Caruso, right? And
Yeah.
I went up to go vote over there, and I knew one of the pollsters or the people that sit
Yeah.
there, and I did my signature. Then she looks, she goes, "I know who you are. You are Jim Leahy. You are James
Yeah.
Leahy." So it's like, but
It's
it did not match.
It's like-
because I don't know my
It's like-
my
yeah.
18-year-old
I agree with
signature.
that.
Well, and
terrible.
then if you could imagine, we have people who are in their 70s, 80s, 90s voting, whose hands, even on these electronic things,
Yeah.
their hands are shaking.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if the Secretary of State, when you go in to get a driver's license, can then send your information to vote, why can't we use that driver's license to show who you are? We're getting the information from the driver's license.
Well, these
In that process.
these are all wonderful arguments. I think irrefutable arguments, and so you have to ask yourself, why? and this kind of where we come up with these conspiracy theories.
I know.
Right? Like it or not, true or not, outlandish or not, it lends itself to that.
Right. These are questions that need to be answered. Again, if they're getting voter information and registration from the system that generates the driver's license, why not have to show the driver's license?
I agree.
That's how the person got registered.
I agree with that. I agree.
Because there's a photo, there's an address, there's a better indication outside of a signature, which is very poorly validated. And it's not because the election judges don't try. I will tell you,
I agree.
I didn't know who the Democrats and the Republicans were. Everybody in that room was professional. They were polite.
Yes.
They didn't take offense
Yes.
when I said, "Hey, I'd like to challenge that signature." They didn't take offense. They took the time to explain it to me, and I said, "You don't have to. You all voted 2-3 or
Whatever it
2-1." And I'm overruled. And they said, "No, we'd like you to be comfortable with this." I was so thankful for that. They really took the time to know how important it was?
Did they know who you were?
No.
Okay.
And I didn't go in and advertise that.
Did
I
you
never
say,
do.
do you know who I am?
Don't you know who I am? Don't you know I am?
And then they would say, no.
Although at one point the clerk actually came down to the operations and didn't know I was going to be there, so he came over and started talking with me. I think at that point
They kinda knew you knew.
They had some suspicion something was going on. But I always want people to do their job without the influence of someone from a party.
I agree with that.
They have to be doing it in a nonpartisan way, and they all worked so hard.
I agree.
There are just better ways to validate this. There are.
I agree with that, and we can. And now I think I've always kind of just thrown my hands up in Illinois and said that it ain't going to change here in Illinois anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe we can change it. Maybe, given the mood of the nation, and again, I think this has to do with success, right? Does Trump do what he says he was going to do? When I say they, I'm thinking in my mind, I'm thinking Musk and
Vivek feel like
Ramaswamy.
I do?
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll
Ramaswamy.
sing that later.
And the Doge or whatever,
Yes,
Dodge,
yes.
whatever you want to.
Yes. To me, this is a very important area that I think could change a lot of people. I don't know if you've seen this. The guy, what's his name? What's his name? The guy.
Cenk Uygur?
Yes.
From the Young Turks.
Yes.
Did you see what he's going?
Yes. He was like, well, if you're for cutting the military, I'm all for this. He said,
Now,
"What?"
wait a minute. So there was an interesting dynamic that Trump brought about, and the last two election cycles really highlighted it. Politics is a circle. Sort of a horseshoe that just nearly
I
connects.
agree.
The far left all the way
I agree.
around
So
to the populist far right, and they share a lot of the same issues
this way that you
at
have-
that point.
You had this crossover between Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump.
It's uncomfortable bedfellows.
Yes.
It's very, very.
My kids would always pointed it out in 16.
See, but that's the thing. It's like their response is always, like, yeah, we have an issue there. Okay, well, let's do. Let me see. The answer to their problem is always regulation. We'll just add more. It's like, no, we're fighting the government.
Again,
the government's
I think I'm going to go back
causing
to
the problem.
whatever his name is.
Cenk. Yeah, Cenk Uygur.
Because I just saw him yesterday, and I know Anna, the girl that's with him.
Anna Kasparian.
Yes, she started moving some time ago.
Because the far left started attacking her, and she said, "I'm one of you," and they attacked her even more. And she said, "Okay, you
guys are nuts.
You're nuts. You're crazy."
So she started moving a couple of months, and then he was always kind of fighting that. But now, but he's also right. If you agree with them, why are you objecting?
Well, that's just it. There are certain people in politics who do it because it gets them clicks, it gets them money, it gets them donations.
Leave Joe Walsh alone.
They feed a base. They feed somebody.
No offense, Joe.
People.
I don't think
I'll give you an example. People who are honest with politics, even the environmentalists. Ben Shapiro actually pointed this out once, and it was genius. He said, if you have an honest broker on politics when it comes to the environment, if they agree that we should look at nuclear energy, because that's the cleanest, safest energy that we've got now. For
Proven
the most part.
safety.
Right, and that will actually, wind and solar is certainly safe. It's not efficient. Nuclear is efficient, safe, and can last. I mean, look at France. They're powered by nuclear fuel.
I'm kind of shaking my head because I don't know if wind and solar have proven to be safe. But that's a different.
Not for birds, that's for sure.
Well, that's a different argument, right? For the environment, right? If that's
either
what
way,
we're talking about.
Either way, they're not efficient.
Yeah, I agree
they're
with
very
that.
terribly inefficient, and there's the cost benefits not there.
I
They
agree.
wouldn't survive without subsidized. Nuclear will. So if you're dealing with an honest broker who says, I want environmental changes, I don't want to do the fracking, I don't want to do the oil, but they're not going to consider nuclear, they're not honest brokers.
I agree with that.
So at some point,
I agree with that.
when the far right says, or I won't even say far right, the populist, more Rand Paul isolationist group, and the Republican Party says, we don't want any more foreign wars. We think the military is designed to enforce our borders and specifically our interests, and so we want to cut back on it to make sure it's manageable, and we want to get rid of the military-industrial complex. The far left side has a very similar argument for slightly different reasons, but they sort of meet at a resolution.
I agree.
They want the same result. Now,
I agree.
you're exactly right. Republicans and Democrats, even if they sort of meet, always have different methods to their madness.
Or reasons why they reach there.
Yeah, so the details matter. The left wants
does.
to gut the
I agree
military.
with that.
The right just wants to not feed the military
I wanna
industrial
say-
complex and get into more war.
I got to say, they failed an audit 7 years in a row. It's like
And there's no
the Department of
repercussions.
Defense.
None.
And that's
If
why
I
they
would
did
have
it 7
failed an
years in a
audit,
row.
if I would fail an audit, what do you think would happen?
And when you
It
have the
seems
biggest,
like-
when you go to no, you pay. You pay. You don't
hire him.
Open tax
my
advocates.
file.
That's right. That's right.
Open tax advocates 312-664-6649 or visit
I'm glad you remember that
ChicagoTaxTeam.com.
number. But again, I think this is important, okay, because we want to bring others on board.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's why I wanted to talk to you, because I want to bring others on board. I think we need a concerted effort. Now, that's a good segue to one of my questions I have for you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk. Tell us how many precinct committeeman spots are in Lake County.
It's 431.
We have the spots. How many are filled?
We have a lot of open spots. We have the more than half that. Are
more
open.
than half.
Yeah, more than
Okay,
half.
and I want to point this.
I have to take a look at a new count. Believe it or not, since Trump, we actually added probably 10 or 15 precinct committeemen.
So I don't know. Right? There's this precinct strategy that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think you and I've talked about this. Dan Schultz is his name. I had him on my show, and he's got this precinct strategy. One reason why I became a precinct committeeman, okay, because they said, well, you're complaining, and I was a precinct committeeman in 2004 when West Deerfield Township was Republican, and that's the year 2006 or 4 or something like that we lost West Deerfield Township.
Yep.
And I think we've had one or two. Mark Brown has been on. I think as an independent, he ran. So there's been a little bit of fudge, but it's been largely Democrat since that time. And I left because I just was I didn't like the way it was run.
Mm-hmm.
But that's when you get in an organization and you don't like the way it's run, especially in a big D democratic organization. Is that there's ways that you could try to influence to change it rather than bailing. And I did bail. That's not worth my time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But then I started listening, again, that's why I became a precinct committeeman. And that's what I'm trying to tell people is maybe you should consider being a precinct committeeman. Maybe you should instead of throwing bombs and telling everybody how bad things are, maybe if we filled 200 spots in the Lake County.
I think we'd be full up. We probably have a little bit more than half, but I think we'd be full up there.
Well, but if we and maybe you'd have, if like-minded people got together and said, let's get together and get involved.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can make a change. Okay, because people like myself who just kind of I always voted, and I voted in every election, even the municipal one. I don't even know who the hell they are. And that's the truth. My son.
Oh, shame on you! You should
know.
they're the ones who affect your lives most
I agree
directly.
with that. I agree with
most
that.
directly. That's where your levies go.
I agree with that 100%.
School board.
My son was a member of the school board, and he was always, in the minutia of municipal elections. As when you're a precinct committeeman, you meet them and you learn.
Right.
That kind of gives me a
Okay.
segue to one.
Okay, calm down.
I know.
I get it. Focus on the
I'm going to do another thing because we have elections coming up now.
We do.
Okay, so talk a little bit about that. What's going on now? Because I think it's such a small window of that gave us an opportunity. The election, the big election here, and now we see maybe there could be some change. But you have to name candidates already.
So let's start with the premise that the Illinois election cycle is absurdly long. And they overlap. So literally before Election Day, people were circulating petitions for the consolidated municipal elections. Talking about township, you're talking about city, like mayors and others, you're talking about school boards. And literally, as of last week, was the filing deadline to get in those petitions. We are in the challenge period for most of them now to be on the ballot for the elections in the first and second quarter of next year. And that's it. And then, a couple of months later, we have an earlier circulating period. We don't know the exact dates, but it's going to be prior Labor Day for the 2026 elections. They overlap in the worst way. People get no breaks. And actually, I think that is a disservice to voters. When you just have the droning on and on and on, and there's no letting up, people don't... Look, politics for most people, for us, we're junkies. We get in on it. We love it. We read about it. We hear about it. We talk about it. We listen to debates on it. We go to lectures on it. You get on the radio and you talk about it.
I was going to say I was reluctant junkie, but I am not reluctant. I'm all in.
I'm all in. I love this stuff. Even when I wasn't chair, before.
Even when we lose.
Yeah. Before, in between the time I lost my re-election and I was the chair, I was all in. I was helping candidates. All in. 99% of people are not. Politics is a distraction. Let me live my life. You do what you're going to do in politics to help me live my life, to help the community, to help somebody with my tax dollars so it doesn't feel like it's getting flushed down the toilet. And then I don't want to hear from you. I tell people they're basically the offensive linemen of the world.
Yeah.
When something goes wrong, it's the lineman. Government did it. When something goes right, there's usually a hero, and we don't give anyone the credit.
It's a quarterback.
That's right. There's usually a hero involved. Forget the other people who usually. So it's the offensive lineman. No one wants to hear from the lineman.
That's a very good analogy.
No one wants to hear from him. And
Very good
truthfully,
analogy.
why should they? No one has this time in their life.
They
don't.
I'm a big Bear fan, so I know Jimbo Covert, but most people don't.
Oh, the good old days. Oh,
Bear fan. Oh, hold on. I'm a Bear fan too, and I feel like we've been run by Matt Eberflus.
Well, I agree with that. Let's not go there.
We've had some rough years,
Let's not go there.
but
And it's not Matt Eber's. It's his fault this year, but it hasn't been his fault historically. So.
no. But look,
I know who it is, though.
We all know who
Don't
it
get
is.
me going.
so we go right into. We are now in elections, and look, it's near Thanksgiving, and it snowed for about for a rough minute yesterday.
We got
Suddenly there was snow.
We got some snow.
It's pretty much gone, and we are near Thanksgiving. Usually at about this time of year, people get on the ballot, and then they sort of go into hibernation with the holidays. No one wants to deal with politics during the holidays.
Nobody.
Everybody. People go home. They go to sleep on politics. And by the way, they should. What's important is not politics during Thanksgiving or Christmas or Hanukkah or any of the holidays you celebrate. Celebrate with your family.
But this
your
is my
friends.
beef.
That's what's important.
That's my beef now, right? Is that we got these elections, and I know it's not got anything to do. And I have to say it's got to be planned this way.
Yep.
Because it makes it very hard to get candidates because. We just finished the cycle. People who might have been encouraged because of this last election haven't even thought about running for election.
Right.
Maybe they will, but it's just too early, and it's like I'm still in this euphoria if you're a Republican, or doldrum if you're a Democrat, and thinking about running for an office. Well, it's always a daunting measure, right? Not something you want to do lightly. And it makes it more difficult to find the right candidates. And so, and of course, incumbents like that because they're running.
Well, look, if there was any evidence for a system that was built for incumbents, just look what happened in the state of Illinois this last time around in the House and Senate elections. You had 118 people running in the House, 118 contests, 20 Senate contests. Illinois, by most of both parties, is considered a dumpster fire. We've got deficits. We have government run amok.
I won't let you deface Illinois anymore on this show. I won't let you do it, sir.
It's terrible. 0 contests change seats.
Yeah.
0. How is it possible that in Republican areas and Democrat areas and everything in between, out of 118 seats in the House, not one flipped? Out of 20 in the Senate, not one flipped. That is remarkable.
That is why
because they do such a great job.
That is
we're
why
all so happy.
That is why I advocate for people to vote out. And if you see them there on the ballot after 2 election cycles, get them out of there. Vote against them. Doesn't matter.
I am, and I know that they talk about
Same
this
thing with
national-
judges too. It's like you want them to sit and get them out of there. I want to flip
There's
around.
different strategies for that, but I agree with you in the sense that term limits are a must.
Term limits are a must.
I think in all levels of government. I think the one term in Virginia,
That's
West
another-
Virginia, is kind of crazy.
But that's another thing that the left and the right
I don't
now
know if you saw
are,
this.
and again, the far left and the right are
where they're coming
is
around.
where they're kind of where their
you're right
meeting
about that.
points are now term limits. Like it's becoming too much.
So let me ask you something. It's your show.
I'll try.
Let me ask you something. As a point of legal theory, the term limit thing has, in practice, I'm a big fan of it. Now, let's take leadership aside. I think leadership
Well, I agree
should
with
have absolute term limits.
I agree with that.
But for your House member, let's say, for example, they really are doing a wonderful job for you, and your ballot is your freedom of speech, and you would like to send them back to Congress, even if they're not in leadership, who controls everything. I get the idea of having new blood in there, but if you decide you want me to be your representative, who am I to put an artificial law to say term limits? You can't.
I love this because
That
the
is-
argument of incumbents is this: we have term limits. It's called an election, right? And you can limit me anytime you want. But the fact is, the realism is, it isn't really that, because you have so many. Now, I might be for take one election off, sit out one term, and then you can come back. But keeping the term, and then
That's an interesting way of.
That would be interesting.
And then another argument is, well, as my guy is there longer, he has more power,
Right.
and can do more for me.
Don't tell
Once
that
he
to
gets
Bobby
in-
Rush.
Once he get, well,
Why does he have pot?
you have to try to.
Why does he have potholes all through?
There's Weekend at Bernie's going on there.
Don't tell him
but
that.
generally, right, the longer you're there, the more likely it is you're going to get a chairmanship or
sure.
something. The more power you have, the more you can deliver for your constituents, the more entrenched you become.
See, I think if we put term limits on leadership, generally you see when people are in leadership and then get out of leadership, they generally get out of
Yes,
Congress.
politics, yeah.
Because leadership is where you have control, and if you just go back to the main herd,
Yes.
you don't have that level of control, and you find that you're. If
I
we
would say
put-
they get
if
out
we
of
put-
politics, but they try to get a different job.
Well, but if we could do 2 terms of leadership.
Okay.
2 terms of leadership.
I'm chomping at the
Calm
bit. I'm
down,
chomping at the bit.
man.
He's getting a little excited.
Because
Stop
here's why.
it. You're
We
like
tried that.
having-
The Republicans had that. They implemented that.
But it didn't last.
No,
You
it didn't
gotta make it
last.
Then you just cycle through one round of leaders. Those 12 people get out.
Say,
and
wait
they
a
get-
minute.
You know,
And the leaders say, "Wait a minute. This is a bad situation.
because it's good to be the king.
It is good to be the king, and every chairman is a king. It's like an alderman.
They control. They absolutely look what happened with Illinois
Yeah.
under Madigan. I mean, Chris Welch doesn't have quite the power that Madigan did, but it's still, if they don't want a bill to come up for a vote, it doesn't come up for a vote.
But and of course, Madigan was there forever, and the longer you're there, the more power you're going to have. And,
Right.
And so this guy can get there, but not. It's going to take some years. And and of course, that's what I'm objecting to: the years that it takes. Right? Maybe he shouldn't be there. And I like the leadership thing. The problem is, again, the leaders they control what votes are made, and when they say, this leadership,
That's true.
It's not really good. We should vote against that. And everybody says
It's not leadership; it's dictatorship.
Well, it is.
And that's they are dictators.
I agree with that. I love listening to Democrats kind of talk about their party, like we talk about our party. Like herding stray cats or something like that. It's like
Corralling
we
cats, yeah.
like to think that at least I do. Democrats kind of fall in line, but they kind of do, right? As I said with Harris. She broke more ties than ever before. What does that mean?
You're right.
That means every Democrat voted 50. They only had 50. They needed her to break the tie. They voted all together on almost everything.
And Bill Brady Republicans aren't falling in line. Come on.
No, they do.
They're hard party followers, okay? It's just that's a reality because people don't really want to think for themselves most of the time.
Okay, so I think that's partially true. But I think some of the reality is that people are members of these party organizations to keep getting elected. And if they stray away, then they don't get the support, they don't get the money, they don't get the people, they don't get the it used to be the U.S. postage stamps out of the House with Rostenkowski and the rest.
Yes.
You don't get any of the privileges from your party. You don't get the rank. You don't get you don't get the Ways and Means Committee.
Who's your guy in Highland Park?
You get Brad Schneider.
No, not Brad Schneider. I'm talking about the
State rep?
Yeah.
Bob Morgan?
The guy that went against Madigan, and he was the only Democrat that didn't have.
Oh, it was Scott.
Yes.
Scott. Yeah, and he went against Madigan, and they, I think, behind the scenes politely said, "We will be running someone against you," and he said,
I'm
"I've
not
had
running
enough
that,
of this."
yeah, so-
Now, look, right or for wrong, I think people follow along because they want that party support. There's a huge advantage to having party support. I'll give you an example. Just
100%.
As
just
the
on
party
ballot
chairman
alone.
tells us.
Just on the ballot. Well, yeah, but just on the ballot. And by the way, I'm not a fan of that. We risk a parliamentary system if we go other ways, but the parties set it up so that they individually are in control of everything. To get on the ballot in the 10th Congressional, needed about 1,000 signatures for Democrat and Republican to get on the ballot. Do you know how many signatures you needed as an independent? Now keep in mind, it's got to be a signature of no one who signed for a Democrat or a Republican or circulated for a Democrat or Republican. So you had to find that many, more than 12,000.
Really?
12,000.
It's a lot.
That is
It's
a lot.
almost impossible.
So
It is
nearly impossible.
Nearly impossible.
It is. I would suggest that even in a place as big as the 10th Congressional, which is most of Lake County, that's impossible.
You can't do that in a couple of months.
No,
That takes-
it is, and the party's designed it that way.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of that. Now, don't get me wrong. We have our own issues with various independent candidates and the rest. Fine, those are political issues. But getting on the ballot and people who want to run, I don't like those roadblocks, those choke points that the party set up to protect their own. There's something.
Although I do understand what we don't want 10 people on the ballot, because then someone's winning with 13% of the vote, and they win.
Yeah. These
and-
weird pluralities.
So I'm not a big fan of that either.
Yeah.
I do like when I don't take this the wrong way, but when Chicago went to nonpartisan, that was a better way actually for Chicago, because a Republican had no way of winning, and then you kind of break it up into, again, they have 8 people running for this office doesn't work, and so I understand that. And so you need that political party to kind of get the majority. You want the majority behind you. I get that, but I understand what you're saying too.
Yeah.
But if you made it so easy, then we'd have 7, 8 independents running, because who would go through the party apparatus?
I know it. Look, our system is the only the best system next to every other system.
I hate the system.
It
It's
is.
just better than every other system.
Yeah, and it's just so.
Yeah,
But
I
look,
agree.
you
I
want people to exercise their rights to vote and their rights to speak. And by the way, the evolution of both parties in the last decade should show you that just because the parties are there and they seem somewhat entrenched, they're really not. The Republican Party under Donald Trump has morphed considerably from where it was under, even when Mitt Romney and John McCain were running, George W. Bush was running, morphed considerably. And Barack Obama, when Barack Obama was running, he said, "I'm for traditional marriage." Bill Clinton signed the traditional marriage law. Signed it into law. Even when Biden was running, he was sort of murmuring about that, because he murmured about everything. But he was murmuring. He didn't right away pay lip service to all of that, but it has evolved very, very, very quickly. So even the Democrat Party, Bernie Sanders, has never changed. He's been an avowed socialist for 3, 4, 5, 6 decades. He's never had a real job outside of the public. He's been at the public trough his entire career, but he's been an avowed socialist from day one. He almost won the presidential nominee for the Democratic Party. If it wasn't for the superdelegates, he would have won it.
May have been the preferred candidate
An
overall.
avowed socialist. So that tells you that there. I don't know that we need a huge number of variety of candidates, because the parties are not. They're dynamic in a lot of ways.
I agree with that. Except for, again, here the parties kind of can manipulate who gets in, who so it's not always again, democratic, big D, democratic process. And this, again, I think Bernie Sanders proved that.
Yes.
I think if it were up to the delegates, he would have been the party nominee in 2016.
Yes, he would have, except for the superdelegates.
Yes.
So the Clintons envisioned a Bernie Sanders challenging them, and so they set up the superdelegates, who were that above the fray and could vote and change all that. And so they did. Well, look,
we'll be democratic as long as we win. But if we lose,
exactly,
we're not democratic. I think Harris was a good example of that, right? We're going to have a democratic system of getting whoever wants to vote, as long as it's Harris.
So I am on the same page as you. I am not even if I don't agree with the Republican candidates, I'm not a big fan, even in my position of leadership, of choosing the candidate for other Republicans. We've always taken on the philosophy that the best Republican to run is the Republican that the Republican primary voters pick to represent them in their district. And on the western part of the county, in the northwest, the whole western backbone, southwest to northwest, very much more conservative than the middle, central, and eastern part of the county. But you know what? They're all Republican.
Now you just kind of. I want you to talk a little bit about. And I don't want to keep you longer than you want to stay. So, but I want you to talk about the divide here in Lake County, because the west side of Lake County was kind of red, right?
Not kind of red. Was red.
And then
was red.
And the west or the east side, right? The east side along the lake.
Yep.
Blue as blue can be.
So it's first, I have to say you have to define what you mean by red and blue, and here's why I ask. The whole side backbone.
Mauve and magenta.
That's exactly the whole backbone, that northwest to southeast part of the northwest to the southwest part of the county, was red for Trump. But within that area, there were some mixed races. The central part of the county was blue for Kamala, and the eastern part. But some of our countywides made serious inroads in that area and won a lot of those districts. So it's not entirely so clear-cut. I think overall, before this election cycle, Lake County was probably plus 12D generically. We're probably at about plus 9D. So
Made some inroads.
whether Trump did 2 to 3% better, our candidates did 2 to 3% better. So we're going in the right direction. That being said, we're still not a Republican county. But you're right, the eastern part of the county, even in places like Lake Forest, which are largely considered Republican areas, were blue this time around. And they were blue on the presidential level. They were red in some of the other races. But look, a lot of it is externalities, how people perceive different things.
So let's talk about some of our candidates.
Yeah, sure.
But in particular, I want to talk about.
Well, we're kind of wrapping up.
No, coming close. We're good. A couple minutes.
Okay.
While I have him here.
Yes.
I can invite him back next week, but he probably won't come. So,
first of all, I love being on your show.
Yeah. Don't put me on the spot. Yeah.
No, and I'd come back and look. I'm happy to support you and people coming to you for tax help, especially this time of year. We're getting close to the end of the year.
Yeah.
If people come to you before the problems, not after the problems.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about Mary Cole, because I think she is a good example of the Republican Party in Lake County, in the sense that she's not a hard R in any sense.
R is in Republican.
Yes, and I thought she was a perfect candidate for state's attorney. I did invite her in, and as you know, we had a couple. Andy Dalkin who ran, who I had an event here for, who came to my precinct and met the folks in my precinct as Mary did. Both of them won my precinct. Okay.
Well done. Look at
both
you.
of them won my precinct.
There was a little flex there. There
But
was a little flex.
Karras didn't win. He got 47%.
Well, you should have stuck with the flex.
Trump didn't win, but they didn't come to. Trump didn't win.
Right.
Trump wanted to come. You didn't let him. But you didn't let him.
But I think if he would have come to my precinct, he probably would have won. But I don't think he cares about my precinct. But my point is that it's the involvement, right? In that, and it does take. It does take getting involved, and I'm going to go back to this because I really want people to get involved in the party. Whether you think you're a party person or not, I think we need precinct committeemen. We need candidates.
We do.
Okay, so before we close, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about that, about getting new precinct committeemen and new candidates. Talk a little bit about that.
If you're sitting on the couch and you are not happy with the results, come to one of our meetings. Volunteer for a candidate. Think about running as a candidate. Get involved very early. Precinct committeemen, they're volunteer jobs. We do it for no pay. It's absolutely thankless, and it's so rewarding because you get to talk to the candidates, you get to talk to your friends and neighbors about the candidates. You would be stunned and amazed what's really important to the people around you. And then you have a license to get into those conversations. And it's not necessarily only talking about abortion and guns. You're talking about the cost of living. I go to Jewel, and I'm thrilled when eggs are on sale for $2.99.
Yeah.
6 years ago, I was thrilled when they were on sale for 99 cents. That's crazy, that amount of money. And we're talking about Jewel, not Whole Foods, not Mariano's or Heinen's. This isn't super expensive stuff. Everybody is going through this. That's politics. People need to get out and talk to their friends and neighbors. Get passionate about the topic. It's important. And by the way, on local elections, most are nonpartisan. We're helping people in the backgrounds because it's important that our people get involved in these races. There's nothing more important. You know what? You want to know how important it is? Wait till your garbage doesn't get picked up for a couple of weeks, or your sewer overflows, or there's a boil order on water, or all the roads have potholes. And you know what? You know what's really important then? Not abortion law coming from Washington, D.C. That's important. That's every single day. We will find a way to let you get involved. We'll give you the outlet. We'd love to have you at the table. We don't even need you to agree with us on everything. Just take a seat and listen.
I agree. So thanks. That's a great ending to the show. I appreciate you taking the time. I can say all those issues you just pointed out are being debated in my neighborhood as we speak, and they're probably being debated in your neighborhood. Get involved. Go to these meetings. Become a precinct committeeman. That's the best I can tell you. So thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, you can get involved just by, again, as Keith Brin said, go to these meetings, get involved, become a member of your community. That's how we really make our country great again. Anyway, so we want to thank Keith Brin for coming in. Remember, also, too, show sponsored by Open Tax Advocates, 312-664-6649, or visit chicagotaxteam.com. It's going to be your hub to help fight the IRS. We want to thank you for tuning in. Hopefully we can keep this train a-rolling, and the only way we can is if you like, share, subscribe.